182 horsepower and 225 Newton meters of torque. It's up against a total weight of 320 kilograms. We've taken a look at how this performs on the road and whether everyone would be able to handle it. Triumph is bringing us a new version of the already well-known Rocket 3 Storm with the latest rocket. We have known it for a long time. It has been around for nearly 20 years now. Triumph felt that wasn't enough. We needed something more. Several revisions have been made. We still have the same engine displacement, just under 2.5 liters, but we've gained more horsepower. An additional 15 horsepower has been added, bringing us to 182 horsepower. Torque has also been increased by 4 Newton meters. And yes, it's certainly an exciting concept. The rocket may deviate slightly from Triumph's typical model lineup, except for the 3-cylinder engine. The backstory of the vehicle is somewhat interesting. Originally, Triumph wanted to build a vehicle specifically for the American market and conducted research to determine what would be appropriate for the American market. They found, not surprisingly, that anything with less than 1000 cc of displacement in America is typically used for power generators rather than motorcycles. And so they said, well, if we want to build something for over there, then we need something with proper displacement, a real tough engine. Therefore, they came up with this engine concept, deciding to stick with their historical 3-cylinder configuration, but to install it longitudinally rather than transversely. This was because a 2.5-liter displacement would result in an engine that was too wide, which would not have been practical for riding, especially in terms of lean angle freedom. So they simply decided to install it lengthwise instead, and that's essentially the result we see now. We have a longitudinal inline 3-cylinder engine with 2.5 liters of displacement. Naturally, this design has its pros and cons. The advantage, of course, is that the vehicle is relatively easy to maneuver because the crankshaft is oriented longitudinally, which means it doesn't act like a balancing rod as it does in engines with transversely mounted crankshafts, keeping the motorcycle very agile. The disadvantage might be that at a standstill, when you give a burst of throttle, you can feel a certain pitching moment in addition to the rotation of the crankshaft, which, however, disappears fairly quickly once you reach a certain base speed. For me, it's still a very interesting concept, and I'm pleased that we're seeing another new variant from Triumph. Since we're on the topic of the engine, let's delve a bit deeper into that. For those who are technically inclined, Triumph made a significant move when they first launched the T-Rocket by creating such a large engine. With limited experience at the time, they looked briefly at the American market to source large pistons and other engine components and found a match with the Dodge Viper, which has a similar displacement per cylinder. We're talking about over 800 cc per cylinder here. It's quite a powerhouse, as the saying goes. Indeed, these high-performance parts were necessary due to the engine's size and power. Triumph initially collaborated with Dodge, and the first generations of pistons were sourced directly from the Dodge Viper for this engine. Over the years, Triumph has continued to develop and refine their designs independently. Initially, the engine was around 2.3 liters in displacement, but it has now evolved to 2.5 liters. Although the engine itself has not significantly changed from its predecessor, the electronics surrounding it have. As you know, we now have to comply with the Euro 5 plus emissions standards. In response, Triumph has sharpened its focus, saying that if they need to implement new electronics and tuning to meet these standards, they might as well see if they can squeeze out a few more horsepower in the process. This approach not only ensures compliance with environmental regulations, but also enhances engine performance. And they succeeded. Through electronic enhancements, they managed to gain an additional 15 horsepower and a few more Newton meters of torque from the lower RPM ranges. This is noticeably felt in the performance. The engine is powerful in all conditions. We will discuss the driving impressions in detail in our conclusion. Let's turn to the suspension. The bike features suspension components from Showa. At the front, there's a 47mm upside-down fork that is adjustable for both rebound and compression damping. The central rear shock, also from Showa, is fully adjustable. This gives riders fairly good options to tailor the suspension to their personal comfort and riding style. Another unique aspect of this motorcycle is the tire widths. It has a 240mm wide tire at the rear and 150mm at the front. It's worth noting that the front tire is probably wider than many vehicles have on the rear. Indeed, this is quite a substantial tire setup, which brings with it certain advantages as well as some disadvantages. We'll touch more on these points when we conclude with the final assessment. The electronics have been overhauled, as mentioned earlier, and this overhaul extends beyond just engine mappings to include a range of features. Modern vehicles typically come equipped with these, and this motorcycle is no exception. It includes cornering ABS, allowing for safer braking in bends. There are also various rider modes that can be selected to alter the engine's throttle response profiles. This allows the rider to adjust how gently or aggressively the bike responds to throttle inputs. Traction control is also available in several levels, enhancing safety and performance under different conditions. Additionally, there is a fully customizable mode where different settings for traction control and throttle maps can be combined and accessed at the push of a button. This flexibility enables riders to tailor the bike's behavior to their preferences or the demands of specific riding conditions. The electronics also include a feature that, while no longer completely new, remains a significant convenience: a keyless go system. This means there is no ignition lock to potentially disrupt the bike's aesthetics. The key simply needs to be carried on the person and the vehicle can be started with the press of a button. The bike also features a colorful TFT display, which is partially customizable to meet the rider's preferences. The brightness of this display can be adjusted, ensuring that data remains easy to read even under strong sunlight. For those who are more tour-oriented rather than focused on sporty features, an important electronic feature is the integrated cruise control. This is particularly beneficial for long rides, allowing riders to set and maintain a desired speed comfortably, enhancing the overall touring experience. The vehicle is designed to maintain its course effectively on its own, especially important considering the braking system, which has to counteract the formidable thrust of the engine. For braking, the motorcycle is equipped with high-quality components from Brembo. At the front, it uses stylimer calipers which clamp onto 320mm brake discs, standard in the Supersport category. Unlike many other sports motorcycles, however, it features a large 300mm disc on the rear wheel. This size is significant, largely due to the motorcycle's extensive wheelbase and the heavy engine located centrally. The larger rear wheelbase and engine placement increase the downward pressure on the rear wheel during intense braking, allowing the rear tire to maintain better contact with the road and thus transfer more braking force. The larger rear disc significantly aids in building and maintaining this braking force, even under strong decelerations, enhancing overall safety and performance. As the disc size decreases, more force must be applied to the brake lever to achieve the same level of deceleration. In sport motorcycles, this often isn't a major issue because the rear tire tends to lose contact with the ground under heavy braking. However, with this particular motorcycle, the scenario is different. Due to its design and weight distribution, the rear tire maintains solid contact with the road even during intense braking maneuvers. This allows for significant braking force to be effectively applied through the rear wheel. enhancing control and stability when stopping. It's worth noting that the rocket is available in two different versions, the R version and the GT version. The main difference between the R and GT versions lies in the seating position. The R version offers a more sporty seating configuration, with the handlebars placed further forward and lower and the foot pegs positioned further back. This creates an overall sporter riding posture. On the other hand, the GT version is designed with a focus on touring, offering a more relaxed riding position that is better suited for longer journeys and comfort during extended rides. This distinction tailors each variant to different rider preferences and needs, enhancing the overall versatility of the rocket model lineup. Yes, let's move to the most crucial aspect, how it feels to ride this machine. We had ample opportunity to test this vehicle extensively, and I must say I'm genuinely impressed. Initially, the 320 kilograms weight might deter many people because it sounds quite heavy and challenging to maneuver. However, it's important to note that the overall center of gravity of the motorcycle is very low. And due to the longitudinally placed crankshaft, you don't feel the weight nearly as much as you do with other motorcycles in the same weight class. Handling it while stationary is also quite easy, thanks to the low seat height, which ranges from 750 to 770 millimeter, depending on the version of the vehicle. It is very low. This means you can exert a lot of force with your feet. It makes it relatively easy to keep the vehicle balanced when parking and to push it back if space is tight. As soon as the motorcycle reaches a certain forward speed, it becomes very easy to handle. Due to the longitudinally oriented crankshaft, as we mentioned earlier, it has very simple and playful handling. This makes it very easy to transition from one lean angle to the next and maintain the turning radius despite the extremely large length of the vehicle. We are talking about an overall length of 2.4 meters, so it is quite a lot of motorcycle to maneuver. However, with this engine construction, which was actually designed to reduce the width, it also has the added benefit of generating excellent handling relative to the overall weight of the vehicle. Basically, it can be said that the vehicle can be driven very sportily for this reason. So the 320 kilograms paired with this engine and engine construction can be moved very well. The only drawback, which might be a small point of criticism but is naturally due to the design, are the extremely wide tires. One must imagine that the wider the tire, the further the contact point of the motorcycle moves away from the center when leaned over. This naturally results in a certain twisting of the motorcycle in the curve, which slightly hinders the neutrality in the curve. Ideally, the motorcycle should maintain the radius completely effortlessly when leaned over. Here, you always have to keep a slight steering input, exerting a little force on the handlebar to maintain the radius. It's not a big issue, but you do notice that the wide 240 millimeter rear tire resists a bit. On the other hand, it is also a visual highlight. One must say a 180 millimeter tire would not necessarily fit such a vehicle. I really like the appearance, and the handling is still such that, as you can perhaps see in the pictures, it can be driven in a very sporty and fun way. The engine also deserves special mention when talking about the driving behavior. As one would expect from Triumph, this engine, despite its large displacement, is an absolute novelty in terms of smoothness and running characteristics. We have here, as mentioned, almost 2.5 liters of displacement with over 800 cc per cylinder. And yet it runs completely smoothly. You hardly notice the engine is running until you twist the throttle. The nice thing is that the engine has a lot of torque in all situations. You can call up massive torque right from idle. And this means you can cruise comfortably at 1,500 RPM, and regardless of the gear you're in, you have endless thrust. And this makes it extremely relaxing to ride because I don't need to concentrate on which gear I'm in when I want to start an overtaking maneuver. there's enough power available in any situation. On the contrary, the focus was indeed on providing high torque and a lot of power from low RPMs. And this has been executed superbly. That's exactly what you want in a motorcycle like this. This is not a motorcycle where you only ride at high RPMs. It's about having a lot of torque from the bottom end, and it does that exceptionally well. It responds to the throttle instantly with no delays. It's really fun to ride. There are virtually no vibrations in the motorcycle. The engine is definitely a highlight and unmatched. I don't think there are many equivalents you could compare it to. Triumph has done an excellent job with this. There is one small thing to note about the engine, which is a slight negative. We experience slight load change reactions. This means that when I completely close the throttle and then lightly open it, there is a slight jerk, especially in the lower gears. It's not overly disruptive, but considering the advanced electronics we have nowadays, this could be handled a bit better. We have different riding modes programmed in, but the first touch, as it's called in racing terminology, is a bit jerky, and smoothing that out would be desirable. Apart from that, I must say the overall design of the vehicle is very well executed. The chassis, if we want to briefly mention it again, is on the sporty side. This naturally also enhances the handling when you want to quickly switch from one lean angle to another. There's no significant oscillation. You can still control the motorcycle well even while drifting, which works great, although there might be some compromises in riding comfort. So anyone who prefers a more cushioned ride might find it a bit challenging, as the focus here is clearly on sportiness. Now, let's briefly talk about the price. Due to the design concept, it is naturally in the higher price range, also depending on whether it's the R or GT variant. The R version will cost around 30,000 euros in Austria. In Germany, thanks to the lower taxes, it is priced around 26,000 euros. The GT version is slightly more expensive. In Austria, it costs around 31,000 euros, and in Germany, it is around 26,700 euros. That's the price range you should expect if you want to park this piece of machinery in your garage. So to summarize briefly, I must say I really like this motorcycle. Triumph has done a really great job with it. It combines a massive presence in front of the ice cream parlor with a lot of driving fun and good handling on the way there. Anyone looking for a super agile motorcycle with extremely light weight, like all 125cc bikes, will probably not find what they're looking for here. But anyone looking for a motorcycle that makes a strong impression, really stands out and still rides well, will certainly have a lot of fun with the new Rocket. I hope I was able to give you a good overview of the features of the new vehicle. If you have the opportunity, try it out, get your own impression. It really handles well. So all that's left for me to say is goodbye until the next test report, where I'll provide you with more information. Until then, bye-bye.